Welcome to Marathon Champions, the podcast where running legends Benji Durden, Bill Rogers, and Ron Tabb share their timeless wisdom on marathon training and inspire listeners with their wealth of experience. These champions continue to impact the running world today.
Yeah, Bill, you and Jackie are really good about you're staying involved. You're out there all the time, going to different races and being representatives, great ambassadors for our sport. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of that. We need Frank Shorter out there, being an ambassador. I know occasionally he shows up. I saw, we got together at the Olympic trials up in Orlando, but we need, it would have been great to have you there. I would have loved to have gone and listened to you and Don and Frank at the Olympic trials down here in Orlando. Why isn't there an organization bringing you guys in to discuss your experience going to Montreal? And Jackie, same thing with you, your experience, you as an ambassador, former world record holder. I know you were just recently in Wyoming for a marathon up there.
Yep.
And those are
Joni never stops. Joni is
Joni,
she makes an appearance every other day.
But I think you got to remember, Jacqueline.
But there's people who don't even know who she is.
Funded and supported by Nike since the mid '80s, right?
Yeah.
So Frank Shorter has a gold and a silver, but he doesn't have a shoe company with that support, and so I think there are issues in that regard. But Frank is still very involved. He lives in Falmouth, Mass now. But for example, at the BAA, I always wonder, how come Frank Shorter isn't here? He's got a gold and a silver Olympic medal. He's won on 4 continents. And yet he's not at the Boston Marathon. And there's a lot of ego tripping going on in these marathons, as you know. And it's fantastic. I said, Frank, come on up. We had a big meeting with a lot of people in the sport, and you came to it last year along with John Anderson on your 50th anniversary, and Frank was there with his wife. But I don't think he had been invited before. So there's a lot of, I think that the ego tripping that goes on is part of it. But certainly, Joan deserves the support, but so does Frank Shorter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And here's a funny thing. I mean, you guys, you're talking about the cost of shoes these days. Why isn't there a shoe company out there saying, okay, hey, Benji, you represent the United States. Well, you were on the Olympic team 1980, you didn't get to represent, but why hasn't the shoe company said, hey, we want all these former elites. We want to take them collectively and be a representative for our company, be our spokesperson for our company. Why would you not want to do that? I mean, just
the part of the problem is nobody knows who we are.
Oh, but the reason they don't is because no one is really taking the opportunity or taking advantage of them.
Yeah, it's kind of the chicken and the egg. I always say the public could be educated.
Yeah, they could
exactly.
Jobs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're sitting here and just having a conversation between the 4 of us, we're not really. I mean, hopefully, these podcasts will get out there and eventually, reach an audience that will that can benefit from it, and that maybe we can benefit from it a little bit too. But the young athletes. I mean, Benji and Bill, they've talked to a couple of my athletes that I, high school kids that I coach, and they've become big fans of ours just because they have now been exposed to us or introduced to us. But we need more opportunities to do that.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, that's exactly how I ended up at the Casper Marathon so many times, because I was traveling before COVID. I was traveling with Willie Banks, Mike Powell, Dick Fosbury, and other Olympians doing running camps for high school kids. We were called world record camps. And so I started meeting other people. So I started like in Montana. Oh, we have a Montana women's run. Would you come back for that? I did a camp in Casper many years, and same thing. We have a marathon. Would you come back for that? So it does kind of get out there.
Then you went to Culver.
And at Culver Academies. I went there from a decade, and but that never led to anything else. But that camp in itself, we had 250 kids and another 100 on a waiting list. That camp was that popular.
It was
Wow.
fantastic.
It was so fun.
Leadership. It was leadership.
Yeah.
And that's the whole key, I think, in the whole story.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of USA Track and Field, I think it's hard to get the road side and the marathon side, but I think that sport, our side of the sport, is growing too. And let's support every side of the sport. You know, the Olympic Games are coming up, and that's going to be fantastic. And I, you know, Sebco's comments are right. You know, the #1 event in the Olympic Games, watched by about 4 billion people out of the 7 billion in the world, a lot more than, let's see, some other sports that we see on TV a lot here in the US. You know, so let's support these American athletes, you know, like Mr. Lyles.
You're talking about Seb, you know, being the right person for the job, and hopefully he will be. But I was talking to Frank in Orlando, and I was asking him if he planned on being in Paris for the Olympics. And he said he hasn't, no one has reached out to him. No one has talked to him about coming to Paris for the Olympics. Now, why would you not want Frank Shorter, Olympic, you know, 2-time medalist in the marathon? Why would someone not reach out to him with whether it's U.S. track and field or whether it's International Olympic Committee? Why hasn't someone reached out to someone of his stature?
They still haven't.
No,
2 weeks ago, they still haven't.
Oh, okay? So you talked to him, yeah.
So he was at Boulder, and we had a conversation at Boulder, and he's probably not going to Paris.
Yeah, that's what he indicated to me back in February, which I think is really sad. I mean, you know, it's just our sport is really just stagnant. It isn't growing the way you would have expected it to grow, the way it was growing in the you know, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Well, I think Frank won the Olympic Games gold in Munich in Adidas, and then he took a silver in Montreal with Asics when his Nike.
It was on Asuka, but yeah. And
but it would be nice if one of the shoe companies.
He was supposed to be in Nike, and his Nike shoes weren't working right. He quickly grabbed his Onitsuka's.
But I think it's up to our own federation. You know,
our federation right now would prefer that the distance events go away.
They're not going to.
It appears, yeah.
These are
they do not want.
Benji, you know, Benji and I are going to the Olympic trials in 2 weeks, and he has to purchase his own tickets. He was sponsored by Nike. He has to purchase his own tickets to go to the to the U.S. Olympic trials.
That's crazy. They owe you, Benji.
That's BS.
Yeah, well,
yeah, it is.
He has to. I mean, Nike doesn't even give him shoes anymore.
No,
and
I got a pair of shoes from Paris.
A pair.
I think it was in 21 when the Vaporflies came out. He sent me a pair. So I've had one pair that I've gotten free.
Yeah, but look
and a Saucony guy out of the blue sent me a pair of Sauconys. Now, those are the free shoes I've gotten in the last.
I mean, really, guys, don't you think that the sacrifices, I don't call them sacrifices, don't you think the contribution that we made to the sport entitles us to a little bit more?
I don't feel like I'm entitled. I mean, I would like to get stuff, but I don't feel entitled. I mean, you know.
Well, okay, maybe that's not the right word, but don't you think that
it would be nice,
Bill and Jackie and, you know, Benji, you guys, we represented our country, we represented our sponsors, I think, pretty well, you know, and then for them to just not, I mean, not in your case, you're going to the Olympic trials in Eugene, which is Nike country, and they're not offering to say, hey, we've got an area where, you know, former Olympians, you know, we'd like to invite you to come here. And
well, actually, we're not former. We're still Olympians.
That's right.
Oh, well,
once an Olympian, always an Olympian.
Right on.
We don't like that word former.
I think doing our podcast is one way of
owning the sport.
Yeah, and reaching out a little bit, but we all are doing what we can and have done that for 50 years or something like that, a long time. So I think that's valuable. Jackie, I see you at Boston a lot. Um, Benji and Ron, we have all won Houston. We'd like to see Houston maybe bring us back. We could do a talk there. Jackie come in and represent the women, side, or Francie LaRue, champion from Texas. That would be nice to see, because I think the modern day marathons, they grew up with us, really.
Right.
We were there in the
Well,
early days, so we do have interesting stories to tell.
I had a great model, just last month in May. We had the 40th anniversary reunion of the first women's Olympic trials, and up in Olympia, Washington. And it was not, it began just like the one in 2019. We had a 35th, where it was, some people from the original committee and some people who came after, and they put it together, and the focus was on just the women participants in those first trials. We had some private receptions, and we met some dignitaries. Like, I can't remember where we went, to the Capitol last time, and this time we went to the governor's mansion, and that was all fine and good, but it was all just a private reunion. This year, there was a whole new aspect, and it was the local running club, and a woman, like one of the reunion runners, it was her doctor's partner, and this woman found out that we were coming to town, and her club pulled it together to celebrate us with the running community. And it was the whole theme was exactly what you're describing. Local runners, local current runners, and local current coaches in her local running club called the Club Ole Roadrunners. And they put on a day long, on our empty day that we didn't have other events. We had a shakeout run. She brought in Desi Linden and Joni. Desi and Joni led the shakeout run. And then we had 3 times an hour and a half panel presentations with a handful of the current athletes and coaches and pioneers, the reunion athletes. And it was kind of like passing the baton. So, panel number 1 was about the history, and it was Joni, Laurel James, Desi, and me. And it was all about the history. Panel 2 was about the motivation, and we had the current and the former runners talking about what motivated them to run, how they trained, and that sort of thing. And the third panel focused on the training and the technology, and where do we go from here moving forward. They had Jack Daniels. They had Sally Edwards, who was not only a runner at the reunion, but she started that Fleet Feet store, and she was all about the technology. So it was like past, present, and future, and it was just great. And the theme was called Inspiring Generations.
Jackie, you should take that group and go to all the major marathons, LA, Houston,
We should
Boston,
tour around, put
Chicago.
that show on the road.
Yep, it should go on the road.
Yeah, it would be great.
And you
That'd
can
be
bring us
fun.
in the side door. We could come in and wave a little bit.
Well, and the woman who pulled it together, we met in Boston. She's a doctor, a mom, a marathoner, and her club president, and she is just full of energy. She could pull it off. She
I
could
think the
totally do
future is
that.
bright for our sport, because it is both men and women. It's about health and fitness, though I would say that has not been recognized in the US yet, except by individuals, not on a national scale. They don't talk about it because our healthcare system's so ass backwards.
Oh,
Wish
yeah,
we had
it's
a
sad.
first class one, that really reached out to everybody and promoted a sport like this, Wouldn't that be great?
That
Then we
would be
would have
great.
plenty of opportunities, and that museum would be built,
Hey, I can see it all coming together. We need you to be the CEO.
Yeah.
You've been nominated, Bill.
I'm confident it's gonna happen. There's so many people in this sport that love the sport, and it's unstoppable. I don't know if you saw the latest news from the BAA. about from the Bank of America, the new sponsor who took over
Yeah.
from Hancock, and they're talking pretty big money, you know, the kind of money that's in the other sports, you know, and it's a one-day event, but there's these other events like you're talking about, Jackie, Benji, Ron, all over the country,
Yeah.
the clubs, the road races, the track athletes. You know, I'm going to an event with Joan Benoit Samuelson in a week, and it's a 45th anniversary of a race on Long Island, Shelter Island, and there's a healthcare company involved. We're going to talk to a bunch of high school kids. I would
Perfect.
love to see a lot of our Olympians getting jobs like this through the
So
healthcare
is this the
industry.
Shelter Island Road Race, or is this just an event?
It's the Shelter Island 10K and 5K.
Okay, so yeah, because you know, that's the one I did in 19.
Yeah, you were there. You beat me.
Yeah,
still
I beat you, and after I'd strained my hamstring at about 2 miles,
And
almost
Kim
walked
Jones was
in.
there, and John Sinclair and Kyle Hefner, you know,
And
the Olympic team.
Kim
And
was there.
it was a great race.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you know, I think that's what we have to do. We have to have the healthcare industry recognize the role and
Right.
maybe work with USA Track and Field or something, athletics, and because there's so many great athletes. You know, the cardio side of our sport makes us unique. It's not there in a lot of sports. I don't know how far they're running in some of the sports. I know soccer players run a long ways. They're very good cardio athletes, but some sports they're not. And I think this is a real issue. You got half of our population that's very sick, very overweight, and there's ways to change that, but we're going to need the leadership. And
Yeah.
maybe it will be people at USA Track and Field and people at these big marathons, people that think kind of like us, and we all think the same, you know. That's what I believe, and I think that the best days are ahead, you know. I really believe that. Don't you, Jackie?
I do. And maybe Bank of America or some similar sponsor would be interested in funding it. And then I mean,
A museum,
the
a Hall of
sky's the
Fame
limit as
for
far as,
marathoning, road racing.
the
Yeah.
medical aspect. By the way, I'm on the UCLA website, not for athletics. I'm on the health website.
Yeah,
But
you've done your part. You've reached out, you've coached kids,
so,
you've done
yeah.
this for decades, and we've all tried to talk this, but you know, we're not the most visible athletes. We're older, of course.
No,
You know what I mean?
yeah, and
I'm
part
talking
of
about,
that is because we're not into it for self-promotion, unlike some athletes, or some
yes,
wannabe athletes. But yeah, we're not in it for that. And
I
so,
have to tell you, I was at an event once and there was a famous basketball player there. And I said, how come I don't see more of you top guys out there doing ads, you know, about healthcare and everything? He said, well, first the agents would get involved, and then the fee's going to go astronomical or something,
yeah,
you know? And so that's why it doesn't happen too much, you know?
yeah,
But our fees are lower. So
yeah,
give us a call.
yeah,
There would be a
exactly.
bunch of things that I just
I'm
do.
reasonable. I'm mostly free.
Yeah, I remember Billy and I did, I can't remember where it was. We did the run for prostate cancer. Remember that one?
Yes, they're national. My
Yeah.
last marathon, I wasn't paid a cent by the BAA. Of course, 12 or 13 out of my 17s, they didn't pay me a cent, you know, but those were the days, my friend. And but I ran my last marathon after I was hit with prostate cancer the year before, and I ran with the name of a company on my chest, you know, because I wanted to get the word out to guys, you know, when you turn 50, 60, get your PSA checked. And I did get invited to some other races, you know, sponsored by prostate cancer specialists or something. But we need more bigger thinking on issues like this. That's what I'm saying, Benji.
Well,
We think big, but some people only think how much. I don't
well,
know.
let me read it. I want to read an article to you guys, and this going back to what we were talking about from the medical standpoint. So this is a friend of mine that I went to college with, and I had to respond to it, but as summer starts and parents of players are considering playing football, whether it's a youth league, high school, junior high, I found a quote from an article I'd like for you to consider. You should encourage your kid to play football because it's hard. When I first saw that first sentence, I kind of chuckled. And too many kids are not playing because it's hard. Listen, it's tough to wake up in the summer mornings and go to practice, knowing other kids are sleeping in. It's tough to put pads on and helmet in 95-degree heat in August when other kids are at the pool and their legs are shaking from exhaustion. Anyway, the point is, they're encouraging this parent is encouraging kids to play football. And I just pointed out, try running 100 miles a week for 52 weeks. That was my response to that.
Well, one of the
Because
good things, it is a backward sport. It's from yesteryear, and there's not many good health qualities related to that sport that I can think of.
none. What would be the health qualities of playing football?
Well, it
Other
makes
than
you
getting
Might
a
have
brain.
brain damage. I mean,
Yeah, I was just going to say brain damage. Broken
there's
bones,
some,
brain.
it's a sad story, but it
But
exists.
this is the mindset of America today.
Not
Look
all
at the.
America. Not all
Well,
America.
I agree, but a majority of them,
1
they can
million
name
young American kids.
the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, but they can't tell you who won the Boston Marathon in 2024.
Sure. I understand the media connection, and I understand the lack of knowledge about healthcare and what football does to your brain and your body. I think a lot of us are learning that more, but we need more people at the top end to talk about these issues. But I think a lot of it is money going to college administrators and
Yeah,
coaches in these sports. There's huge money. And I am glad to see that the athletes are finally going to be paid at these schools and earn some really good income. In case they don't graduate from college, they get some respect financially. And this is way, way overdue. I never liked the NCAA, and I don't think most of us did. They were so backwards. So that is a good thing. But no, I'm never going to defend football. I think it's a dead end street, I
you're
think
not going to do
sport is an
football after
open
you get out
street.
of high school. Most kids are.
yeah. Well, we should probably let Jackie get on with her life.
I do have a football player who gave up football at USC to go back to track. I'll take credit for him.
And that was one of my favorite sports too.
I was coaching a high school team many, many years, and I had a state champion in the discus throw. What do I know for discus, right? But I know how to recruit. I know how to pick coaches. So, I got a kid competing over at UCLA to come over and, coach my boy. And very long story short, I get to the state meet and the finals, and his dad ran over to me and said, "Hey, Michael's really nervous. You need to go over and talk to him," because my discus coach couldn't be there that day. So I go over. What do I know? I can't watch his throws and correct very much, other than don't step over the toe board, or keep your hips square, whatever. But I gave him a little pep talk, and I knew that they needed more than like my distance runners like me. We want to calm down, but throwers and field event people want to pump up. And I gave him a little pep talk, and I said, I want, why you're up last is because you're the best. So if you're afraid of all of them sitting on the bench, they're more afraid of you because you're coming in with the best mark. Anyway, long story short, I just want you to go out there and put it out there you just put it out there and give him something to think about. By George, he won on the first throw because he was all pumped up. So state champion, his dad sends him off to USC to play football, like he was a big fish in a little pond at our school. I imagine he spent most of the time a bench warmer over at USC. And he called me one day to ask me if I would write a letter of recommendation for him because he wanted to go into coaching. And he said, I have to tell you that I gave up football, went back to track, and I'm a 5-time All-American hammer thrower now.
Wow. Pretty
Who
cool.
was it?
Hallelujah.
Who was it?
I went back to track and field out of football. That's my success story. Coaches, you don't always get to hear about your kids.
Don't.
Yeah, it's icing on the cake. So
You were very good with young kids at Culver. You have a talent for speaking with young people, and I think it's hard to come by sometimes. I think it's very hard to be a coach. I was never a coach, you know, and but I think you had that talent, Jackie. You had talent as an athlete, you know, psychologically, and you had the drive and the vision and everything. So those are wonderful things. But hopefully we're all going to have our Phil Knight. We're reaching out to you. We know you believed. We believed. I read your book. You know, and I understand how you think. You know, you got that eye of the tiger. So now I think what you did at Nike, if that can happen with a Hall of Fame, maybe we need one in New York and one. I know Nike's got a museum and a lot of great athletes have their shoes and so forth there. But I think the future is a bright one, and we all try to play our part.
Adidas, when I was back in Germany a couple of years ago, go back to the Adidas factory, I don't know where the hotel was. Their new facility, they do have a museum there. They have a lot of uh, memorabilia from athletes that represented Adidas over the decades. It was pretty interesting to go back there and see that.
And Ron, there is a new Olympic museum in the United States. It's in, I think, Colorado Springs, and I think it's pretty phenomenal. I've never been there, but I've get information about it here and there, you know, but I think the tricky thing is the Olympic sports seem to come and go, but I think they're on the rise worldwide, and we need those leaders. You know, I keep saying Seb Coe, but isn't he the first high-level athlete, a double Olympic gold medalist, to lead and possibly one day lead the Olympic Games? And then we're going to see our sport really shine.
So that's another subject. You know, I was talking to someone the other day and about the Olympics, and I think that you guys know Pete Squires. I was talking to Pete about this, and you know, we were discussing the Olympics, and I said, "Well, Pete, I think today world championships are actually more important than the Olympics as far as this, you know, track and field is concerned.
Yeah.
Just because
it's not more important for the marathon, but for general track and field it is.
Yeah, not for the marathon, but for the
marathon.
Yeah, except for the marathon. But you know,
as spectators, we like the world championships more than the Olympics. Yeah. There's more competition, more athletes get to represent.
Yeah. It's more convoluted with so many other sports.
Well, also the thing that's going on with the world championships is they've been having prize money there for a while.
Yeah.
Where the Olympics is just you get the prestige, you get the medals, but you got to have a decent contract to begin with to take advantage of
it. To get those bonuses.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'd say let's let Jacqueline get on with her life.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you being with us.